Oh, oh, oh. Hey, hey, it's Andrew Bepler, and I'm gonna be talking to you about how to make your Flash, just these two, be a good make happen, so you can take what's in your head, put it through your hands, and a Flash show it to people. Gonna make it work, but we gotta start the basics. So, these tutorials, I'm gonna go ahead and get going on them. Let's start at Flash 8, the oldest that I have. This is Flash. I'm assuming that if you're watching this, you've made it so far as to acquire a copy of Flash. What I'm opening right now is Flash Professional 8, made by Macromedia, and it's pretty good. I mean, I would go so far as to call it great, but some people like to use the later versions that were made by Adobe. We got we got the CS 2, 3, 4, 5, 5.5. You got your 6, and then there's CC 2013 and 14. I'm gonna use the CC just so I can cover all the bases, because anything that is either in between 8 and CC is gonna be covered. Because Flash has almost exactly stayed the same for the last some odd 10 years. They just added a little bit of stuff like 3D animation, which isn't even that great, and the bone tool. And nobody wants to get boned. I mean, let's talk about how you open your files. Now, you noticed I may or may not have just definitely clicked ActionScript 3. What you were seeing there was a prompt window, not unlike this one, except that it was more sleek because it's the one they launch with the program when you haven't opened anything yet, which, by the way, you can set it to default open a new, a blank document for you. So let's talk about what happens when you get in here. You're going to see something almost always like this. It'll say new document, it'll say some amount of tabs up here, and then you'll have options. You don't want any of these, almost never. In like CS2 or 3, maybe you wanted the second one where it was ActionScript 2, if you were making a game and you only knew AS2. Other than that, always pick the top one. It's going to be a Flash document, or it's going to say ActionScript 3, which just means Flash document, and it's going to be using ActionScript 3 for its code, but most animations don't use ActionScript, so that won't even matter. Don't worry about this, you can change it later, and then hit OK. There you are. Your first untitled document. It's going to be great, it's going to be exciting, and it's going to be very scary, because there's lots of stuff going on the screen. And just don't worry about it right now. Just try not to think about all of it. We're going to go one step at a time. First of all, let's talk about the differences between these two, because I'm going to be doing all my tutorials in Flash 8. I got a lot more experience with it, and it's basically the same, but a key difference is the window types and the color, obviously. That'll be different. But the windows. So we got our properties, and in the newer versions of Flash, they have decided to put your properties over here for some odd reason, and make it a vertical stack. And that's okay. If you're using this version, it'll work, it'll get the job done. But, you're going to see me clicking down here, and you're going to have to be clicking over here. Other than that, I mean, all of the basic differences are that you're going to have more tools that you don't even really need. And then, you can just forget about it. Just go with the tutorials, It'll be a mixed match, and you might need a little bit of work to find the stuff that I'm clicking on, but it's all the same. So, let's talk Windows. What have we got for Windows? Well, we got all kinds of windows. I already did those. See, Flash is, it's very modular in that you never have, well, you can, but you usually don't have stuff just floating out in the open. Some people like it that way, but that's not what the default layouts go as, and that's not what I'm going to be having on screen. So the way that you manipulate stuff on your timeline in Flash and your stage and everything is with all these windows. You got tools for drawing and other tools for manipulating, like transforming and scaling, sub-selecting, all that jazz. Then you got your timeline window. This is for, you know, changing things over time, we'll get into it, you know. You got your color, changing all the colors you need. Library is critical for when you don't want to be redrawing the same thing over and over. You just keep, you drag it out, you know, you drag it out. And then your properties, even more important than the library. Why, you ask? Because properties it affects everything, and it's different for everything. So when you start it up, your properties is going to look something like this or something like this. It's going to say that you've got a document, it's going to tell you the name, and then it's going to tell you all these details that aren't really that important right now. Ones that you maybe want to worry about are your resolution, called the size, and your background color, and your frame rate. So if you want to change these, you just click on it, or maybe double click, and then you'll be brought up with a document properties window. And here you can make it however wide you want, and then it'll change this area that is called the stage out in the centerpiece. And then, you know, that's good. If you want to change your background color, you just click it and then do color selecting. We'll get into color later. And then your frame rate, you can change right there. And then, you know, you go and you want to just, this might happen to you. You might come across a circumstance where you have closed a window you didn't want to close. You know, you've put something where you didn't want it, and then you know, you're freaking out, you're hyperventilating, sucking up all the air in the room, and that's not good for anybody. So you're gonna want to go to Window, up here in the top. If you ever get panicked and your workspace is gone all screwy, all over the place, your tools are, you know, you're getting pop-up windows you don't even know what they mean. Go Window, just take a deep breath, down to Workspace Layout, and just hit Default, or maybe it'll be called Essentials or Animation. Just, oh, we're back. Whew. Everything's good. Window, Workspace Layout, Default, or whatever layout you were on. Now, there, that covered Windows, and that covered document properties. And I almost talked about what they do, so I'll half cross that off and then keep going. What you got going on is just a big flurry of ways to change what's going to go up on the screen once you export your lovely movie. And there, now we can for real cross it out. Feels good. Let's talk about some nooks and crannies, because there are about 1,000 in Flash, and I want to make it clear right now that the 5 windows I'm going to be focusing on for almost all of these tutorials are going to be the ones you see: Tools, Timeline, Color, Library, and Properties. And then Properties has the little sub-panel of Filters, Parameters, and then Color has the sub-panel of Swatches. And you'll notice I'm saying things like sub-panel. You might use a word like tab. You know, like in your internet browser, you've got tabs, and that's good. It lets you have lots of stuff in a nice little compressed little block there. And up here, tabs as well. You might not even have this many documents open, but if you do, then this is how you switch between them. You know, you go up here, it's always at the top of your workspace window. You click and it'll change to your documents. So if you ever, like, you know, you're worrying that, you know, wait a minute, what happened to my list of tutorial items to teach to people who don't know about tutorial items? Oh, I'm just on a different tab. Right up here. Okay, good. Got that? Great. And, you know, that'll get you all situated. Nooks and crannies. So I was already talking about the properties window. And I showed you about the document properties window and the frame rate. Let's talk about this button here. Settings for publish. You're gonna have to use this sometimes for when things aren't working great. It's like when you're trying to get your video out of Flash. This is what you use to make sure that it's gonna sound nice and look nice. but more on that later. That's just what this is about. Next one, let's talk about these. They are all over the place, and they are important. So let's get out of the way now. Every almost window has a properties, like drop-down menu. I don't even know what you would call it. See, properties has a properties little tick box, and when you click on that, you get options like close it, and then if you're in like swatches, you get options like change your swatches. If you're in timeline, you get options like change the size of your frames, you know? Like here you can watch this when I click short. You get a newer, more interesting, and more compact way to look at it. Maybe you want a preview window, and then you can see my little list there. I usually stick with normal, and I keep it on short to keep space nice and tidy. And Tools panel doesn't have a little properties tick box, and that's okay. It's just tools. Your library gives you lots of options, you know, because the library is a really complex window that I'm going to save for a whole different thing. But enough on that. Other crannies. Up here in the timeline, you've got this button here. This is for going between scenes if you're doing an animation where you have more than one timeline, as in, like this timeline would play through to 50, and then in another scene, like scene 2, after 50 is played, it would go to the first frame of scene 2, however long that is, yada yada yada. I never use scenes, but if you want to, you know, there's a scene window for that. Which brings me to my next point. You got all sorts of windows. You got windows you're never going to use. And I'm going to talk about them eventually, but right now, you can see that I've just got the basic ones out. I don't think you can... No, you can. You can put all of these away. But I'm keeping Timeline, Tools, Color, Library, and Properties out. Anyway, I'll get into every window later, just these 5 for now. And then, you know, nooks and crannies. Look down here. You got your library? Well, there's more. I mean, just look right here. You can use libraries from other open, what are they called? What we have open are called documents. That's right. See, I can go to Untitled 1's library, 2, and then this one. Here, you can pin your libraries. I've never done that ever. But there you go. It's pinned. Good and dealt. And then a new library panel will just open a second instance of this. And then you've got it. And then down here, you know, you've got items for creating stuff in your library and destroying it too. And you got a scroll bar to see what's in there. And now, let's talk about expanding and smallifying these windows. So when you have Flash open, you got your windows, but sometimes you need a little bit of extra space. So to do that, you have a couple of ways. There's these horizontal windows that stretch long ways, and like the dividers are vertical. And then you have these vertical windows that stretch tall ways, and the dividers are horizontal. And Tools kind of has to be on the sides because of the way that it, like, you can put it up here, I think. Well, you can in the new versions, but just don't. It's such a poor use of space. What I was saying, smallifying. Say you don't want to see your properties thing anymore. Let me close actions. Just, if you ever see actions, right click it, close it if you're not making a game. You can just hit F9 if you need it. So say you got properties, I don't want to see it, I just want to hide it. This bar all along here, except for right here, that's your properties for your properties, gives you the option to smallify. I think even right there works too. Click it, it goes down. See how the arrow is now pointing to the right? That means it's contracted. And if you want it to bigify, then you just click one single click. And if you want to do it on the word properties, you just double click. Same goes for your library. That'll go down to there. Same with color. You know, they work like that. Now, For things on the side, there's a little bit of a special option, like here and here. You can like do a total smallify, where it takes out this entire quadrant or little blockade of windows, just like that. See how the whole workspace is kind of set up? It's like you get your main area, your timeline, and then this section is its own section because it's divided by a line right there, and inside of that there's little subsections, and then down here's your properties, which stops there, and then library goes down, see, or just like that. And then over here you got your tools. Gotta have your tools. So when you hit this, you're really closing this gap, not just the library. And there it goes. Same for the properties. It's closing, well, properties is a bad example, but like if you could pair something here, it would be closing both of them. Just that little arrow. Okay. So I've told you all about the nooks and the crannies, your drop downs. You've got scroll bars all over the place. If for whatever reason you're not able to see like parts of your window, as in I can't see some of my colors down here, well, there's a scroll bar now, and it'll let me scroll. Okay? Quick note, in the later versions, you get little arrows at the top corners of your windows instead of just clicking on the name. But that works too. You can still double click, and it'll unexpand properties and library. But now you get these for expanding as well. And the more you click on them, the more sense it'll make. And you can also just click here to get it back. And, you know, window manipulation is just something you do so often that it becomes second nature. And as well, you can always make your windows bigger and smaller, as I've done a few times over here like this, or somewhere in here. You can't with properties. I lied to you, but you can with timeline. Just like that. Just grab the bottom of it. Also, some windows offer internal smallifying. That's where you click like here, or just use this arrow. I like to double click here, and it'll, you know, it'll get rid of some non-essential functions, and then just do it again to get it back. Arrow works all the same. Oh, it's called expand, collapse the information area. Lots of information. No, there really is. It's good for properties. So we've talked about the nooks. We've talked about the crannies. Let's talk about the file format. Flash is now an Adobe program, but even when it wasn't, it used a certain file type, and it likes to call those file types .flas, as in .flash, abbreviated. So you got your .flas, or flaws, and then there's another file type. You may have seen it all over the internet and places similar. The .swf, or .swf, as in shockwave file? Shockwave is the important part. I think it's file. Anyway, a swoof is just the movie part, like where an FLA is everything you see here. It's the library, it's the properties, all this stuff. The swoof is just what is in this white box that is called the stage. So, you know, a swoof is a swoof, or an SWF is the compressed version of your movie. So if you ever see an FLA, it'll probably open in your program. Which brings me to forward compatibility. I'm getting brought all over the place today. You know, brought here, brought there. Let's talk about what programs can open what kinds of files. So say I'm in Flash 8 like I am right now, and I make this awesome tutorial _1_basics, right? It's good. I saved it right up. Already did. I did it with my fingers, you know. I'll get to hotkeys later. And then I want to open it in another program, like a different version of Flash on a different version, a computer or what have you. So I'll close it, you know, I leave, and then I go to my new version, and I go, and I try and open it up. I go find it in my tutorials, and got it. And it'll say, ActionScript 2, just say okay. Always say okay for forward compatibility. And it's here, and it's good. And I hit save, and it gets mad, because it tells me this is from an older version of Flash. And if you do this, it is going to be permanently converted to our new, sleek, gray, bone tool version of Flash. Would you like to do this? Yes. And now, I walk back home and get on my home computer, where I only have Flash 8, and then I try to go and open it right up. And it tries to tell me it's an unexpected file format, and that is exactly because you cannot use newer Flash documents, as in ones that were made on versions of Flash newer than the one you're trying to open it on. It won't allow it to happen, because what you might have done is you might have grabbed this and started, bone tooling it up, and it's in here somewhere. You might have been 3Ding it up like nobody's business. You're in here, but Flash 8 doesn't understand how to handle 3D, so it can't work backwards. So don't save into a later version if you want to work backwards into an older version. It'd be a fool's mistake, and it was definitely a mistake that I made a considerably unfortunate amount of times when I was first getting started. Last things, some closing thoughts. Not yet. Shh. Just have fun with it. Don't get frustrated is a key thing. The one thing that I was so mad about when I opened this up was getting everything all mismatched and all over the place and not knowing what the heck to do about it. By the way, what you do about it is there's a little space on any window or at the top here where you can drag it and just put it back. This one positions it independent, this one groups it with things. But, the more you do it, the better it gets. And I just flip-flop my library and my untitled. So, just go workspace layout default. Everything's gonna be okay. Don't get mad at Flash. Flash is there to help you, and I am here to help you, and goodbye. No, really, seriously, goodbye.